was like, oh, thank you. No.
All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're just behind already, so I'm going to get us on schedule here. Got to get ready for those end of instruction tests, which y'all have already taken those probably because it's like nearly May. Talking to some teachers here, whatnot.
I was like, she doesn't have tests.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. I always have some.
All right. Well, we've got to get going. We got to get started with the last days. I hope I updated this. Session number 34 should say Babylon is fallen. Now, I thought we were going to get done with the whole chapter. We're not. Ran out of time. It is what it is. That's okay. We're still getting really close, though. We are in the final few passages, chapters of the book of Revelation. And I hope so far you've found that, you know what? When you just take it for what it says, verse by verse, you don't try to allegorize, spiritualize, Revelation becomes a book that you can actually follow, okay? Not that we understand everything. I've told you there have been a few times I've scratched my head and said, I don't quite know exactly, but what we do have is a pretty general idea, okay? So maybe now, if we've tackled like one of the toughest books many people consider in the Bible, which as you grow, I think, in your studies, you'll realize, oh, Revelation's not that hard. And then you look at Galatians and you think, wow, Galatians is really hard. Anyways, I would much rather, I find teaching through Revelation so much easier than doing Galatians or the books of 1st and 2nd Corinthians, things like that. But hopefully it gives you some good confidence because we're jumping into this topic on Babylon the Great is fallen. All right, so that's what we're going to basically be talking about, one subject today, because that's really what the whole chapter is about. So I turned the cup over because Babylon is fallen. And don't actually turn your head to get in line because you realize how crooked the whole thing is. But from this angle, it looks all right. So let me open this up a word of prayer and then we'll get started. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to dive into this topic, this very fascinating revelation that will come in the latter days. And I just pray that we would diligently study your word to understand what you have revealed. And with that, we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. All right, all of you who are watching, I hope that we don't have any interference on the microphone. I'm going to try to occasionally make sure I discharge it in case there's any static buildup. So with that being said, we have looked at the mystery that was revealed to John concerning the identity of this woman and the scarlet-colored beast. And so now we are going to see the fall of Babylon, all right? So there's a few things that we're going to have to make note of, I think, in the first two verses that kind of stand out to me, and then we'll kind of get the ball rolling, okay, on a lot of this. So after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Now, this is at I think, the very final days. I mean, this may be the next to last day of the last days here, okay? And John sees another angel. Now, the angel before this that was showing him the woman, the beast, all of that, that was one of the 7 angels that had the vials, if you remember. But this one is another angel. Now, the word angel, I want you to have a little bit of information on because it helps you as a Bible student. Remember, we talked about those angels of the 7 churches. And we talked about how those are not necessarily like angels from heaven, okay? Because when you look at the word, the Greek word, angels, it's a transliteration. So there's some words we've taken straight from other languages. And so when you do it, it's not a translation, it's a transliteration. So angel is taken from angelos, all right? It's like where we get Los Angeles, the city of angels, which is kind of ironic now. But anyways... So I saw another angel. So for a moment, let's just kind of think how this angel is described. This angel has great power. Now, I don't think any of you have looked at any encounter with an angel in the Bible and you've said, wow, what a wimpy angel, right? Every angel has great power, but this angel has great power, all right? This is not just any angel, as if any angel is an insignificant thing. But there's something about this angel. And furthermore, it says the earth was lightened with his glory. That's a fascinating verse, or a line right there, because the only times you see references to the whole earth being lightened with glory is to God, right? What is interesting is, I don't have time to do this, but go do your own research. Get the Blue Letter Bible app. and type in the angel of the Lord and see how many times that line shows up. Use the King James or it's not going to work. But the angel of the Lord. And I would argue most of the time you see that line, especially in the Old Testament, you're talking about the pre-incarnate Christ, okay? The angel of the Lord. Because the word means messenger. That's what it means. John the Baptist, a couple times, or at least one time, was referred to as angelos in the Greek, which is messenger. So this is a messenger from heaven, comes down from heaven. He has great power, and the earth is lightened with his glory. Now, with that being said, it doesn't say for certain. I can't prove it in a court that this is Christ here, but it's very possible that this is a great messenger from heaven, Christ himself coming down. Otherwise, this is just this is an angel. Verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. So, this is the destruction of Babylon. And once again, we're not taking Babylon to be anything other than the city itself. We're not spiritualizing. It's not the Roman Catholic Church. It's not the United Nations. It's not fill in the blank, okay? It's not the White House. It is Babylon the city. And you do have the repetition there. Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. This does kind of beg the question, what language did the angel speak? Did the angel speak in Greek? Because that's how it's written. I would lean towards probably not. We know when Christ spoke, especially on the cross, Eli sabachthani, that is Aramaic, which is very closely related to Hebrew. They're all kind of the same family of Semitic language. Was this spoken in possibly Hebrew? Right? Maybe so. And in Hebrew, and true for Greek as well, repetition, especially in literature, is a sign of emphasis. For us, you don't really see this in English, where the same line is just repeated again. It is unique to Scripture and maybe other ancient writings. It's where here's the line, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. We typically do emphasis with our punctuation, right? Like if we had an exclamation point, that emphasize, okay, really strong emphasis. This is how they do it, repetition. So if it's spoken in Hebrew, maybe that's the case. But it is fallen. This is the destruction, and has become the habitation of devils. Now, here's the fun fact. The King James, back in the day, the word demons was not a part of the English language, okay, grammar. It came along later. So when you see lowercase devils, that's modern day how we would use demons, okay? It's become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Interesting language there, birds there. But what this is if you were to go back, you'd actually see how this ties into Isaiah 13. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that to you really quickly. This is fulfillment of that prophecy. So Isaiah 13... verse 17, here's the prophecy here. So this is God speaking about Babylon. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb, and their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. And you go on and read the rest of this. This is very much, and you go on and continue to read in chapter 14, still a major emphasis on Babylon. So as you read some of the words in Revelation here, the hold of every foul spirit, the cage of every unclean bird, if you would go back and read in Isaiah about the prophecies concerning Babylon, you're going to see where this is coming from, okay? It's tied to that. Now, a few notes here. There are many that hold that the Isaiah passage is already fulfilled because we do know the Medes did come. You can read that in the book of Daniel because Daniel was originally taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon. And then some of y'all are getting flashbacks now of our study on Daniel's prophecy. It was my second study I did. That was a lot. We've really tackled a lot there. But Babylon captures Judah, Daniel's taken, and then after that, Daniel gets taken to Shushan, the palace, where the Medo-Persians, Artaxerxes and whatnot, are in charge of the region of Judah. So there's some who read this and say, well, look, the Medes already came and destroyed Babylon, right? Or at least that's what the repetition is. And we do know the Medes came and overtook Babylon. Here's the problem. This part certainly did happen. I mean, Babylon's army was defeated. But here is the problem. Verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, shall be overthrew. And then verse 20 says it shall never be inhabited. This is the problem. This is one reason why I say Babylon will rise again in the future. Because when you look at the history of Babylon, it was not like the Medes came in and just destroyed the city. Okay? Babylon's history is actually one of very slow decline. It wasn't, and in just one day the city there, it's gone, there's no people there. People have pretty much always lived in the area of Babylon. Now you can see the ruins of the city, sure, but there's also like Ahilah, I think, is a city of Iraq that is very close in proximity to Babylon. People have lived there. But look at the words here though. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there, but the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there. There's people there that have been there throughout history, and to this day. As a matter of fact, I actually Googled while I was studying for this. Probably one reason why I didn't finish all the chapter in preparation is because I typed in travel guides for Babylon, and like you can find like a list on the internet of like tour guides and hotels you can stay in, and you can go there, and there's merchandise and all the things. So you can go there. I mean, anybody want to go to Iraq right now? Sound good? But you could, if you wanted to. You could go and you could stay in a hotel right near the ruins, and you could go through tours and see all of it. Doesn't sound to me like this has been fulfilled yet. Okay, and this makes sense. Okay, if we read it, yes, if you just read it quickly, you may think, oh yeah, it's saying that the Medes will come and Babylon will be destroyed. But is that really what it says? Just take the words for at face value. Babylon, here are the things that are going to happen to you. The Medes will be stirred up against you. They don't care about your silver and gold. They just want to bring destruction to your army. The young men will be dashed to pieces. The children will be slain as well. And Babylon will be overthrown. It'll be destroyed. And also, here's more. It shall never be inhabited. This is another thing that's going to happen to Babylon. So not only will it be overrun with the Medes, but there will be a day when it's utterly destroyed. So if we're going to really take the Bible seriously, it's a weak argument to say that this has been fulfilled. Because the truth is, Babylon's always kind of been a city that people have lived in, for all time. It's not an official city in this day, but we could probably go and get, I don't know, McDonald's cheeseburger there if we really wanted to, right? So with that being said, that's the reference over here going back to Revelation on this matter. So the fulfillment of Isaiah 13 is really found here, okay? Now, verse 3 is a reiteration of the social and political power that Babylon has, okay? And so let's read this, and as we read more of this chapter, you're going to see why I am such a anti-big government, anti-globalization kind of guy, because everything about Babylon is globalization, big government, one economy, one currency type thing, okay? So for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Once again, probably literal to some degree concerning all the wickedness of Babylon, but also just wickedness, rejection of God, evil, idolatry, all the things. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. The word delicacies there, luxury, every nice thing you could think of. I would say that when Babylon is back in all of its glory and its heyday, Choctaw Casinos and Resort ain't going to have anything on them, all right? They're going to have all the things. You try to go to Vegas, wherever, there's not going to be any all-inclusive resort, all right? Sandals may be the closest you can get, and I've never been there. I've just heard it's really nice. So with that being said, all sorts of delicacies, the kings of the earth, the merchants, it really will become the site of globalized trade and markets, okay? Like if you want to do business, if you're going to, make a deal, you're going to go to Babylon, okay? And that's where all the trading, that's where the wheeling, the dealing, you name it, is going to happen. And it's all going to be made possible because the Antichrist is going to bring in subjection all nations. They will be under one banner. There will be kings there, but they're going to only get to have their authority because the Antichrist allows it, right? So with that being said, that's the picture. You have a globalized, really even a unrestricted free trading amongst all people, one currency. I mean, that's the only way this happens, right? You've got to have complete unloosed restrictions on all things. There really is no strict borders. No one really owns Babylon. Babylon is its own international city. So with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on from verse 3. Oh, and by the way, for more insight on the destruction, the fall of Babylon, we just don't have time. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51. So if you're wanting to study some more on this, just make note of Jeremiah chapter 50 and chapter 51. It speaks more to Babylon's destruction in the future. That's one of those things. Remember that sermon I did on Jerusalem versus Babylon? And I just mentioned that there is so much said about the two cities. I don't have time to cover it all. That's some of it. So your eyes can really easily glaze over when you're reading some of those Old Testament prophets like Isaiah, like Jeremiah, like Ezekiel. But if you can stay hooked up and follow along, you'll realize, oh, a lot of this is the book of Revelation type stuff. It really is quite neat when you understand what you're doing with it. And unfortunately, a lot of preachers just spiritualize it and make it all about the church, and then it becomes meaningless, essentially. All right, now let's move on to verse 4. Verse 4 is kind of interesting. It's a call to God's people. So here's what it says. And I heard another voice from heaven. I don't know how many voices from heaven there really are. I mean, and who's speaking out of heaven? This could be God himself. And I think the way that the language is, it would be God. Because it says, here's the voice saying, come out of her, this is still Babylon when we see that reference, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. Now you would initially say, hold on, this is kind of jarring because we're well into the postseason here, all right? It's the last days, these are the last times, people have already taken the mark of the beast, and yet there's people in Babylon? I mean, that's the wickedest city of them all, and you're calling your people to come out. I would say to make sense of it, remember, Revelation is not a book of chronology, okay? We've already looked at that. We've jumped around, because if you recall, we've already seen the end. We've seen Christ come in His glory, the kingdom is set up, the people of all nations are praising Him. We've seen some of the same events multiple times, like the rise of the Antichrist, the rider on the white horse. Like we've seen a lot of these things kind of happen over again as John repeats it. And so the best way to look at Revelation is not a book of chronology. It's not this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's much more subject area. So John says, let me tell you about the seals. Okay, now that we've got the seals, let me tell you about the remnant. And then we focus on Israel, right? Let me tell you about the two olive trees, the two prophets. Now we're in the subject here of Revelation chapters 16 through 18, and it's really just, let me tell you about Babylon. That's what we're focused on. We're not really going through order of events. So the subject matter is Babylon. And it sounds to me like there will be Jewish people in Babylon. I think so what we can say is in the early days of the tribulation, you will have Jews living all over the world, and they will actually be in the city. God will call them out, flee, leave this wicked city. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13, 5:13. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 13. I'm going to read this to you, and you probably, if you've had much exposure to really any preacher's teaching on this matter, here is Peter writing, and the way we understand it, it does sound pretty straightforward, like Peter's writing from where he is. The church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, saluteth you, and so doth Marcus my son. The church that is at Babylon, I guarantee you, I'm a Baptist preacher, so I'm not supposed to, but if I had money to bet, you would go to the commentary, you would go to Got Questions, you would go to Pastor Bob down the road, and they would say, this means Rome. Rome is Babylon is a code word for Rome. Okay, it just stands for wickedness and evil. And they'd say because Babylon is destroyed, right? The city's gone, or is it, right? But that's what they would say. Here's the interesting thing: if you Googled it and you asked, were there Christians living in Babylon in the first century? You know what Google would tell you? Yes. Now, it's not to say believe everything Google says, but the point is we have clear historical accounts that there were Jewish, I may have said Christian, I can't remember, but Jewish communities, not, well, Christian in the sense that they were Jews that believed Jesus was Christ, Jewish communities in Babylon in the first century. Do you know how much evidence we have that Peter was in Rome? This is kind of funny. Other than Catholic tradition, which I don't trust that as far as I can throw a school bus. But other than Catholic tradition, the only support that we have that Peter went to Rome really is just this line right here. The church that is at Babylon. Because they say Babylon means Rome. I would say, based on all available evidence, it's much more likely that Peter was writing from Babylon in first century because there were first century Jewish communities in Babylon in that day. So if there were Jews in Babylon in that day, is it that far-fetched that there could be Jews in Babylon in the last days? I would say absolutely not. As a matter of fact, this is another bonus. I should have titled this one an entire bonus segment here. If you go to Zephaniah chapter 1, we don't have time to go there, but you may want to jot it down. Zephaniah talks about in the latter days Israel's judgment, and the Jewish people will build houses but not live in them. They will plant orchards or vineyards but not drink of their wine. You could try to maybe make an argument that maybe saying, hold on now, a city that they will not inhabit, vineyards they will not be able to drink the wine of. Somehow is the Jewish people going to be involved in the rebuilding of Babylon as a city? I don't know, but there's some interesting speculation. There's some preachers who are absolutely confident that that's the case. All I'm saying is, don't overlook like how fascinating the Bible can be. Like there is never going to not be enough stuff to study. And when you go back to the Old Testament and you read some of those like Habakkuk, like some of those very obscure prophets, and you think, what in the world is this even, what's happening here? One of these days we're going to do a verse by verse through Habakkuk because it's just the book of Revelation, essentially, summarized in like 3 short chapters. It's really fascinating. It really is. So, with all that being said, a little bit of speculation there, but they're told to come out. Don't partake of her sins. Do not receive her plagues. All right, now, the next passages, verses really 5 through 8, are going to be the focus on the sins of Babylon, all right? So it says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Once again, this is the city here, basically saying God's no longer tolerating it, all right? Their wickedness, their evil, God ain't putting up with it no more, all right? And we all got parents in here. You know your limit, right? How much you're going to tolerate, and finally it reaches the point, kids start screaming, it's time to, lay down the law. The leather belt, whatever it is. Verse 6 explains that Babylon would receive its reward. Remember, reward is not always, hey, here's a candy bar because you went potty. I'm a toddler parent, right? So that's where I go to in rewards. Reward her even as she rewarded you. It's a rendering, right? Gets what you deserve, right? A reward can be good or bad. And double unto her according to her works. Double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. I tried to look at it a little bit to give you a good idea of what that means. And once again, this isn't a verse by verse because we're going way too fast through all this to do a verse by verse. I think the essential idea is that it's just compensation. Whatever she did, double it, give it back to make up for what she did. The judgment she'll receive. You maybe could read it as a doubling of wrath, like whatever wrath she poured out, double upon her. Regardless, the point is, she's going to receive her judgment. Verse 7 says, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. Now, that's another reference to like the delicacies, right? All the things, okay? Drinking the best wine, eating the turtle chocolates, whatever, you want to think of there. Burning all the nice candles. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen. Remember how she's pictured in the scene. She's sitting on the beast, right? She's wearing scarlet, gold, all the precious jewels, all the things. Also, it says, and am no widow. I looked at the companion Bible, which Stacy has. Stacy, you got excellent notes on all this, by the way, in that Bible. Bullinger, who was a major editor on it, he said this could refer to a king regent, or no, a king consort. So all of y'all are monarchical experts, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm an expert on the idea of a king consort because I looked it up last night when I saw it in the notes. And what a king consort is when you have a naturally born queen, like of the line, and then she marries some fella. He's not anybody important. He may be Duke of, whatever burg, but he's not anybody important. So he's married to the queen, which, yeah, he would be like the king, but he's not a rightful ruling king. So he's king consort. Somehow Bullinger thought that maybe that's what that phrase is referring to there. But who is the king? What's the king consort? I don't know. So maybe this is reference to her saying, I am the queen. I'm not a stand-in, right? I'm no widow. I have a king consort. I'm legitimate. I don't know. Here's what I think. Remember the beast? He was wounded. His head was wounded as unto death. And then he had his miraculous healing, resurrection, whatever. The world marveled. I don't know, I kind of read that and say maybe Babylon's saying, look, my husband, the beast, I'm no widow. He's alive. He's come back to life. So I don't know. There's a lot of things there that we could speculate. But we're definitely not going to make things up and say that this is the White House and saying, look, we have President so-and-so, and that's the Antichrist, right? I don't know. There's a lot of things you can make up. And she'll see no sorrow. She's very arrogant, right? She needs a reality check, and that's what she's about to get. Verse 8, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. So her destruction will come quickly. It's really very straightforward. And I'm going to take it as, one day she'll be utterly destroyed. It'll be quick. Now, remember in chapter 17, verse 16, the means by which God is going to do this is actually the kings of the earth. Those, the 10 kings that we would assume have long been in allegiance with her, the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Over here, we go back over to verse 8 in chapter 18, she shall be utterly burned with fire. So somehow, some way, God is going to take control of, do whatever, harden the hearts of the kings regardless, and they will destroy the city, and it will be quick. It will not be the slow decline of Babylon that we've seen in history past, right? To where now it's a tourist attraction. It's going to be, no, it's gone, it's destroyed. When we get to the next session, next Sunday, we'll see the angel will cast a millstone into the sea, and he'll say, as that millstone was cast into the sea, and when you cast a stone into the water, it's gone, right? He says, so shall Babylon's destruction be. So shall Babylon fall. It'll be quick. It will be done. It will be over. Now, we're going to go through these last verses really quickly, and we have to for time reasons, but also I think it's hilarious. There are times in the book of Revelation, I really was laughing about this. Mary remembers me talking about it. There's times in the book of Revelation when it's so brief and vague, and you just say, please, could you give me more information, John, right? Like, could you just say a little bit more about the beast? Could you describe it? Like, what do you mean one of his heads were wounded as unto death? What do you mean by some of this very mysterious, like this army that has, like, they have stinging in their tails, like scorpions, hair like women? What? And then there's Revelation chapter 18, verses 9 through 19, in which John just goes on and on about the people of the earth lamenting Babylon's destruction. I mean, it is just nothing but, and the merchants cried, and the sailors cried, and the kings cried, and it goes on and on. It's almost like John is embellishing in it. So I know it's not the most wholesome family movie, but there is a line I know from quoting one Conan the Barbarian, like, what's the point of life? And it's to destroy your enemies, see them flee before you, and hear the lamenting of their women. Kind of the picture here, like, this is the victory, final victory lap, if you will, hearing the cries and the wailing of the people of Babylon, seeing the city be destroyed. It's quite amazing. So, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. I take it literally. Sounds like it's going to come like that, 1 hour. And you would think, okay, yeah, they're going to bewail. But then there's verse 10, or verse 11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Their business platform program is shot. It's done. It's over. The merchants, or the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, and all thine wood and all manners of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. And then there's verse 13. It continues to go. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. That does mean we will be dealing with slavery until the very end of time, just so you know there. So with that being said, verse 18, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. You think, wow, okay, yeah, it's all destroyed. I mean, God got it all. I mean, Babylon's done. Then there's verse 15. And the merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. That is how the woman was described, if you remember in chapter 17. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. There would be some that try to argue this can't be Babylon because if you look at Babylon, it's not right by a sea, but there are ports in Iraq. And you can build canals, you can do a lot of things. And so regardless, I don't think this is a cause to say no, not at all. So the sailors, they're very sad. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her coastlines, coastlines, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. It's a lot of verses there saying, wow, they're weeping, they're wailing, Babylon's destroyed. I wish that John would have taken the same time to describe like the new kingdom, the new heavens, the new earth. We only got a couple chapters there on it. Well, really just one main chapter. So with that, that's the destruction of Babylon. Babylon's swift end, the lamentations for Babylon. I would just say in closing, one reason why I think John goes into so much detail is you really are, I think, missing out a lot on the Bible if you do not realize the mirroring and the parallels between Genesis and Revelation. Okay? Those two, they are the bookends. One of the most frustrating things is any movie you've ever watched that has an unsatisfying end, right? Like the movie just kind of ends. There's nothing that's really, the plot's not resolved. Yeah, there's all the threads that were not taken care of. Well, what about this? What about that? And it's just over and done. I would say if you really do read the Bible like a novel, and I actually recommend, if we just approach the Bible like a book and just read it, we would actually be better Bible students because we never sit down and read, I don't know, whatever books you like to read, fiction, whatnot, and just read yourself into everything, right? And you're spiritualizing it. I wonder what Hank the Cow Dog really represents. You know, remember Hank the Cow Dog? Come on now. What is that one dog? Dofer, I can't remember, his sidekick. You know, what does he represent? What's the deeper meaning there? No, you just read it like a book, right? Well, if you were to read the Bible like a book and you did not have Revelation 18, I think you would come away saying, you know what, it was an amazing story, fantastic, but I feel like we left a little bit to be covered with Babylon. The whole Babylon side plot, the side narrative of Babylon, seemed to not be resolved. By having these verses here just showing that all the great things that men tried to accomplish, men came together, they built them a great city, the globalization, probably the socialist, all the things that they brought into this to make it as great as they could, and it all came to nothing. And it's finally destroyed. Man's greatest shining accomplishment, that like man tried to make their own shining city on a hill, right? And it's come to ruin. It's come to nothing because it was based upon rebellion and wickedness and evil. And so I think that's why you have to have the destruction of the city like this, in this manner. And then finally, I would just say that don't be a globalist. And remember, the reason why all these people are so wealthy and rich is how did they do it? They had to take the mark of the beast. Otherwise, you couldn't buy and sell and wheel and deal and engage in the economy. So they're getting their just desserts, all right? All right, so I need to let you go. Sorry, I know you have so many questions, fascinating, whatnot, but we've got to get ready to go to main service, all right? Lord, thank you for the time we've had to discuss this matter of Babylon and the destruction. As we finish out the rest of the chapter next week, I pray we continue just to take your word for what it says and understand that you will be the victor at the end of all things. And it's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Y'all have a good one.
It's Drover.